next, we're going to hear from Capital One and how FinOps streamlines creating managed services for maturing enterprises. That was a mouthful for me to say, but that's okay. So please give a big round of applause to Mike Bragalone, Ben Sleichter, and Nikki Jegorina.
Hello. Wow, this is pretty loud. Hi, I'm Ben Sleichter. I run our finance portion of our FinOps practice.
Hi, I'm Mike Bragalone. I lead our FinOps strategy team.
Hello, my name is Nikki Jegorina, and I'm a project manager at Capital One. I work on our centralized FinOps team, and I'm responsible for managing our FinOps program. This includes things like stakeholder management, documentation, reporting, and standardization. I align with the FinOps persona as well as the product persona. So moving on to our agenda for today, we'll start out by giving an introduction to our company. We'll go over a little bit about our cloud migration and FinOps journey, and then we'll dive into managed services. We'll spend the majority of our time today talking about our managed service standards and how we are managing our continued growth. Thank you. So, Capital One. Most of you have heard about our company and our products, and for those of you who are wondering, no, unfortunately, we don't all get to meet Samuel L. Jackson and Taylor Swift. Next slide. We are a relatively new bank, founded just about 30 years ago, on the idea that we can use data and analytics to better understand and serve our customers, as well as do better risk management. We have over 50,000 associates, are 100% migrated to the cloud, and build most of our applications in-house, which means that we can deliver new and unique opportunities, digital banking experiences for our 100 million customers. Next slide. So moving into our cloud journey. So this journey began when we realized how the power of the cloud can help us scale and deliver on our customer needs much quicker than in data centers. In 2016, we were the first major US bank to declare that we were all in on the public cloud. By 2017, we adopted an enterprise-wide data warehouse, and in 2020, we closed our last data center. In 2022, we launched Capital One Software, which is an internal organization that helps us commercialize internal tools. Our biggest one to date is called Slingshot, and it's a tool that helps you do FinOps for SaaS products like Snowflake and Databricks. And in 2023, we joined the FinOps Foundation as a premier member and added a member to the Focus Project Steering Committee. So a little bit about our FinOps approach. At Capital One, our FinOps practice functions on a hub and spoke model. Our centralized FinOps team sits at the hub and focuses on things that could be managed and controlled at the enterprise level, such as our centralized purchasing strategies, cost visualization and tooling, as well as FinOps adoption and best practices. The various spokes are our stakeholders, such as our finance partners, product owners, service engineers, and executives. This allows us to be a central, unbiased party and enables us to be strategic thought partners that can drive optimizations for the enterprise as a whole.
So one of the largest strategic initiatives that we've had from a FinOps perspective lately has been managed services, or as some may call them, platforms. For us, a platform can mean many things, and at every company it's defined a little bit differently. But at Capital One, really, we think of platforms as a foundational set of reusable capabilities. In many companies, you'll see that there can be a lot of overlap between different applications. And at Capital One, we like to use that overlap to understand where we can start to pull together those capabilities and build those platforms that can bring both our internal users, our internal producers, and our internal consumers together under one Capital One roof. What this means from a FinOps perspective is that we're able to scale our platforms really well because we have our internal users already bought in on what the platforms are doing, and we're able to help understand those costs, those usages in-house, and it means that we can really work with them very closely. It also means, from an engineering perspective, that these platforms create capabilities. They make it so that our engineering personas are able to focus on the innovation. They don't have to keep reusing the same capabilities. They don't have to keep rebuilding. They can focus on those innovations, and then we can have dedicated teams of these platform service engineers that focus holistically on those pieces. So while all of that sounds super great, and it is, there are a couple considerations when it comes to these platforms, right? When you think about it, if you finally built that managed service, sometimes you build it.
And then you blow right past your roadmap.
Other times you build it and you have those great first features where you can think you want to migrate your whole workload, and you can't do it yet because that last missing piece isn't there.
And then lastly, when you build it and they come, you blow your budget, and then you have your platform owners pointing to your consumers and saying, hey, it's their fault. So with that, and in our journey, we found these 3 common problems that come up with these managed service chargebacks. Really, the first one is the consumers don't understand what the usage they do and how that drives the cost on these managed services. Next, there's not a lot of visibility to the roadmap of these platforms, what's coming next, what migrations could happen and should happen. And then lastly, how do we make sure that the chargeback models are not a black box, as well as they're scalable and automated so that you're not ending up manually doing these things month over month. So here at Capital One, we started building this out and generating a framework to start. In this framework, it's 3 parts. The first part is the consumer, then we have our managed service owner, and then really our FinOps team that you see up here, as well as a few people out in the audience, does the governance, or as it feels sometimes, the mediation between the parties. On the consumer side, you're looking at, or they own, what data are they pushing into the system? What workloads are they adding? And then really that goes into, are they using the platform right? Or what is the definition of good, as our product friends would say? In this definition of good, we've found some examples in the past where one team was using an observability managed service to do BI reporting. Obviously, as we found that, we were able to move and talk with them to move those workloads to more of a traditional BI tool at a quarter of the cost. Lastly, on the consumer side, they should also be forecasting and communicating up what they expect to use on these managed services. On the platform side, you have the introduction of unit economics, or KPIs as some folks call it. This is the measurement of like, is the platform or managed service optimized and running at the best configuration? Next, you have what is needed in terms of reporting and analytics. These reporting and analytics numbers translate the usage to the actual cloud cost and enable the next part of this, kind of the chargeback and invoicing creation of how do you start productionalizing this. We at Capital One, we make the managed service owner responsible for creating the initial chargeback model. We as a central team look and evaluate that with the consumer, get consensus, and then we move on to execution. The last thing that we do with them, or they do as the managed service owner, is they also forecast from the top down. Forecasting is everybody's responsibility in FinOps. By doing it from the top down as well as the bottom up, you quickly see where user intent and platform intent misalign, and it drives those conversations. So as I look at this from my persona, the finance persona, really what we're looking at is the pieces of the puzzle. Number one, we need one source of truth. What is our financial system record, and how does that tie to the usage and these enhanced metrics that get pulled in to drive the chargebacks? Next, and one of the biggest problems I've heard over the last 2 days, is with the reorgs, leaders changing in spaces, how do you dynamically link those applications, platforms to the organizations and tie it there? Following that, taking the forecasting procedures that both the consumer and the managed service owners are doing, how do we push that into a well-managed finance system? And then finally, the chargeback execution. Our team in finance does that process to ensure that there's a level of control and that methodology is governed over time so that you don't have managed service owners changing methodologies month over month, quarter over quarter, and it makes sense. So as we talk about chargebacks, we kind of look at it in the crawl, walk, run framework. Crawling is very basic. You don't have real good usage information. You just know what divisions are using the tool and do a dividing and push out that way. Us at Capital One, we did not do this method. We showed it as a potential showback as we were building these up. In the walk stage, this is where you're actually getting that consumption usage from the managed service owners and building out that chargeback model. However, that chargeback model build out is very manual. And in our early days, a lot of it was like emailed reports over from a tech division to our finance team saying, hey, can we do this? Not ideal for a long-term solution. And then the run stage, you end up in more of an automated, data's published to your Lake or BI tool. The methodology is automated, calculated, and pushed into the reporting to drive the chargeback. To be honest, we bounce between run and walk depending on the platform and depending on our annual budgeting process where we recertify and push these platform owners and consumers on like what is the best practice. Last year we have a good example of where we have a data scanning tool that we had priced at a per gigabyte level on a monthly basis. Everybody was happy with methodology, but we learned with some new data that we were getting from new tools, as well as new leadership in this area, that there was an opportunity to enhance this, where the cost to scan a gigabyte data is X, and the cost to rescan it ended up being cheaper in the long run. So we enhanced the methodology, had the conversations, and rolled that out through our socialization process, creating a better, more transparent chargeback.
So now that Ben talked about the finance side, we can get into the fun, which is engineering, right? When we think about engineering excellence here, I wish that I was talking about all just the user end of it and myself who gets to use these platforms, right? But really, we focus a lot on that spoke Nikki mentioned earlier, which was those service engineering teams. Those service engineering teams are key because not only are they the ones building these features, they're also the experts on that system. When we're able to get these features of letting you access your own data, letting you consume that data, letting you understand what you're doing in the platform, we then create a culture of awareness and also a culture of collaboration. When we focus on features, obviously we wish we could build out every single use case, but from the FinOps side, we really push for those platforms to focus on transparency and focus on getting those features as early as possible. I mentioned earlier that users want to migrate to these platforms. The hardest piece is that all their features may not be there yet. What we try and do with this process is we try and get those visibility features early. That way we're able to still understand how you can forecast usage, how you can expect growth, and how you can manage your own usage of that platform while also letting the platform know what to expect in terms of volume. If the platform knows what kind of investments engineering is making, it makes it a lot easier discussion with our finance friends to determine how we want to invest strategically. The next piece of this is unit metric monitoring. So if we want to go back on that slide, on unit metric monitoring, what we're talking about is really focusing on understanding not only what the cost per user is, but also how the platform can use those costs to make engineering decisions. We want our engineering teams on these services to have the power to make creative decisions. We want them to be able to be in control of the actual architecture and make those wins happen for their end users. The example on the screen right now shows an example of where we were able to identify an opportunity with our FinOps team, with our platform teams. We're able to then work with the product teams to do the communication, but to make a change like this, it was an architecture decision that didn't impact our end users. Our platform engineers were able to make this change. They were able to prioritize that change, and they're able to lower the unit cost of storage without affecting any front-end pieces of it. This means that our engineers are able to not only share that win on the service side, but our users get that win, right? Ben, from a finance perspective, are you ever going to get mad about paying 35% less?
Oh, we're never going to complain about getting more output for less price.
Exactly. And the ultimate goal of this is to make sure your finance friends are happy. So along with this, right, you'll notice that we have a lot of personas involved. We have our platform team, we have our FinOps team, we have our product team, we have our finance team. We have all these different personas together, and the hardest piece of that is understanding where does it go, right? Nikki mentioned earlier that when we think about this, sometimes we might get growth before we're able to get to that stage of a product roadmap. So when we really think about trying to figure out what do you get from a product roadmap, we start at the beginning. We think about getting everything that's possible down. These engineers are really great at being creative, really great at thinking about what we could have, and we don't want to limit that opportunity too early on. So we start with everything that we could dream of. And then we work backwards from there with our product side to understand if these are the things we want to build, how would we track if we're doing it correctly? We use operational KPIs that help us understand, are we getting the adoption we want? Are we getting the usage we want? Understanding, is that usage effective? And understanding those metrics and having them laid out ahead of time makes it very easy to see if you're on target or not. And it also gives you a good target point. One of the things we've seen often is that you can get this moving goalpost with your internal service, where sometimes you don't know when one piece is done because the next one has already began, and having these metrics really lets us understand when we can kind of move from phase 1 to phase 2 and continue onward. The last piece is very important, which is the financial responsibility, right? Obviously, we don't want to make everyone sign an agreement. This is an internal SaaS product. We don't need you to sign a contract with an internal team, but we want it to feel like the same way. We understand that users don't want to be spending money that they don't have. We also understand finance really doesn't want that either. We want to make sure that everybody understands not only what your short-term usage of this platform could do to your costs, but also let you understand what that looks like on a long-term basis. And in a lot of cases, what we're able to see is that in the short term, you might have a higher usage cost, but in the long term, that higher usage cost is lower than if you had your own infrastructure, if you had your own platform. We're able to understand that those ownership costs and those usage costs kind of go hand in hand, where as we can drive up your usage costs, we can ensure that your ownership costs are going down, and normally you're able to save a lot of money that way. What this means is by having all of these pieces together, thought out ahead of time, we can create this product roadmap, and we don't just have an isolated product roadmap that comes out with a new feature every week, right? Those would be awesome. We have a product roadmap that everyone's agreed on and everyone is involved on. We want to make sure that as we're building our roadmap, you are always understanding what the next piece is, and we can celebrate each release and celebrate each new innovation as a whole organization. Every piece of that hub and spoke model gets to rejoice in the wins when we come out with these roadmaps.
Now, the next question you may have is, with all of these new capabilities, how are we managing continued growth? So to make the ongoing management process simpler, we focus on these 3 key areas. The first is understanding the persona of the stakeholders involved, which means separating our service owners from our service tenants. The second is making sure that we are providing accessibility to our data through tooling. And the third is facilitating effective cross-functional engagement on a regular cadence. All of these 3 things ultimately allow for a dual ownership model that drives transparency and accountability. Now, transparency is vital in establishing trust. It promotes accountability across the enterprise, and it enables long-term strategic growth. With transparency, our service owners can be responsible for the efficiency of their application, while our service tenants can be responsible for the visible usage of that application. In this dual ownership model, which we call our shared mission, we can be proactive, and our tenants and owners are empowered to work together on future activities such as forecasting and optimization planning. Now, when we think about FinOps data, we don't just think about the data itself. We think about the entire data ecosystem, which includes the process of creating the data, consuming the data, and drawing insights from that data. In this approach, the highest priority piece is creating data that is available and timely such that we have a foundational ground truth to rely on. With this bedrock layer of data, we can then focus on how we are making that data available to our tenants and our owners and ensure that we are making the insight process as simplified as possible. Now, all of this data-driven work culminates in our regular check-ins, which is where we discuss major variance drivers, analyze usage patterns, and strategize for the future.
Hold on now, Nikki, you're saying you want more meetings? Where you want engineering, you want finance, you want us all to be meeting more? What are we even bringing to that? Why would we want to meet more? What do we get out of it?
Well, that is a great question, Mike. And making sure that all of the necessary stakeholders are at these meetings is essential for driving alignment and action. But just coming to these meetings doesn't drive action. We make sure that all of our stakeholders are well aware of their responsibilities going into these meetings so that we can leave with actionable insights. Our central FinOps team comes to these meetings with a monthly snapshot of usage and KPI-related data and drives the conversation to where those optimization opportunities are. This then enables a conversation between engineering, finance, and product, all who bring knowledge to the table, such as specific insights into the service usage data and specific unit metrics, insights into the chargeback postings and budgets, and a general understanding of the product roadmap and usage drivers. Leaving these meetings, our engineers can walk away with an understanding of where their efficiency opportunities lie. Our finance partners can update their outlooks and their forecasts, and our product owners can move forward with more informed feature prioritization.
Awesome. With all that, we want to leave you with really 3 big points. First off, transparency of your processes, methodologies. Drive the conversation. Like, is this the right way to do things? That effective tension between your groups that we as Central FinOps folks facilitate is what we're really shooting for. Like, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing for the business, for our tech partners, for our team. The next piece of it, with this increased visibility and data, I think Mike Fuller said it this morning in the keynote, like, we're really looking to enrich our cloud data to kind of drive that accountability and visibility into what is the next thing that we can push on, and how do we know that it's good or not good. That accountability actually is what drives the action, because now everybody sees based on transparency and the visibility here. Lastly, like any good relationship, expectations are key. If you don't know what is expected of you as a customer of these managed service platforms, or as a managed service platform, you don't understand what is expected as you as a provider to show best practices, drive better insights, and own this methodology and help make it better, then you can't drive that action, and everybody in the group is really just pointing to each other again and saying, hey, this is not my problem. Really, our shared responsibility framework that we shared has been what's driven the conversations, created that expectations, and then our ongoing engagement meetings that Nikki just covered is what reinforces it and allows us to continue to push the ball forward down the field. Thank you for the time. We'll be out back after the presentation if you guys have any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Check out more FinOps X 2024 content on our YouTube channel on the 2024 playlist. Support our channel by liking, subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and by leaving comments and questions for our speakers. We appreciate your support.